Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. On this episode, we're going to talk about probably one of the biggest factions of World Championship Wrestling, and that is the New World Order. Although what we're going to talk about tonight, they're not actually the New World Order yet, but it would be the beginnings of the New World Order. Jack, what was your thoughts when you saw Scott Hall come to World Championship Wrestling?
Well, I thought we were on to something big here. I had heard, I'd read the sheets a little bit, which I was not a proponent of back then, but somebody had it in the dressing room one night and they were talking about it. So, but I thought it was a great way to bring him in, and then later on Kevin Nash in the same fashion.
Rodney, what did you think when you saw Scott Hall show up on World Championship Wrestling?
I figured Vince had fired him and he needed a place to work.
Well, let's give you a little backstory. Actually, the WWF and WCW, led by Eric Bischoff. Let's say this was all led by Eric Bischoff. They were a competing wrestling company, and it really got hot and heavy when Nitro was going to go head up against the WWF's Raw. I think at the time it might have been called Raw is War. I'm not for sure yet. It may not just it may have just been called Raw. But now remember, they'd already got Hulk Hogan. They'd already got Randy Savage, Mean Gene Okerlund, Bobby Heenan, and way before then, Jesse the Body Ventura. A lot of WWF wrestlers are in World Championship Wrestling, which leads you to believe that World Championship Wrestling couldn't develop their own wrestlers. What do y'all think?
Yes, I agree with that.
I mean, because they took almost everybody that they could get their hands on. All right, here's the one thing that people
this is what happens when you have a blank check to do what you want to do.
I'm gathering you said blank check because you brought you.
Yeah, I said blank check.
All right, because you went out during that time. I would think this. Now, I will tell you this. Now, everybody said, and I want to get y'all's take on this. Eric Bischoff has said that he did not, under any circumstances, get the angle of the NWO from Japan. Now, that's what he said. He did not get it. All right, I'm getting I'm hearing myself back from somewhere.
Yeah, I hear you too.
Are we? I wonder why we're getting this.
I'm making sure all my volumes are turned off. They are.
Rodney, is your volumes turned down?
I'm having technical difficulties. Let me step out.
All right. All right. We will get back to Rodney. You'll come back because I kept on hearing myself and I was thinking, hey, this is not going to work. All right. Here's the question I have to ask. He says on his podcast, 83 Weeks, he had said, Eric Bischoff has said that he did not, under any circumstances, steal that because he didn't even know it was going on. He did go to Japan. He has said he went to Japan, and what he saw was that the wrestling through the media and the wrestling fans was taken more seriously there, and that he wanted more of a reality-based wrestling company. But he said he did not even know that they were even doing that angle there, which I wouldn't have probably knew it either unless I knew how to speak Japanese. I probably couldn't have done it. What do you think, Jack? Did he know?
No, I tried to keep up a little bit with what was going on over there, but I didn't know about this at all until a few years ago, and it became a topic of discussion. So I was not familiar with it.
And he says he wasn't, that he just went to Japan. He was spending some time over there, and he saw exactly how they were able to it was more reality-based wrestling, and that's what he wanted when he was thinking about when Scott Hall, or it wasn't even when he was talking about Scott Hall, he just wanted World Championship Wrestling to be more reality-based because it was more of a cartoon. WWF and them were more of a cartoon.
Exactly.
Now let's talk a little bit about how Scott Hall got to WCW. he said in his interview, Eric Bischoff, on several interviews that I heard, that Diamond Dallas Page was the guy that first got them connected together. I believe Diamond Dallas Page, did he not manage him at
He
some
managed him in AWA, I believe.
Did he manage him when he was the Diamond Stud in World Championship Wrestling?
I believe he did that. I believe he did then too.
So he was a good friends with him.
Yeah, they went back a long way.
So what happened was they came to an agreement, and Hall gave his notice to the WWF on February 20th, 1996. He made his first appearance on Nitro May 27th, 1996. Now, we'll come back to his first appearance in just a moment. I think what we need to, Jack, do you remember the Nacho Man and the Billionaire skits that was done by Vince McMahon?
Yeah.
What did you think about those?
I thought it was kind of low class, honestly. I mean, they were funny, but you know, the one rule that we grew up with in wrestling is you just ignore your competition. You know, when you start bringing them to light and making fun of them, making indirectly a part of your product, people are going to wonder what the other guy's doing, and they're going to start watching.
Do you believe that did work against the WWF?
Well, I think it made Ted mad, and Ted was the guy who had the checkbook. Yeah. You know, he and Vince already had a contentious relationship anyway. So when Ted saw the opportunity to put the screws to Vince, he took it.
I know that I probably wouldn't have done that. Plus, it took guys that really made you a lot of money, Hulk Hogan and Nacho Man. I mean, Macho Man. And it really, I think it just made you look bad because it's almost really like, oh, they were gone and he was mad because they were gone more than that. Scott Hall would sign a contract with a reported $500,000 per year for no more than 180 days. This is compared to a 250-day contract that the WWF was doing at the time. Jack, was he worth $500,000? Was he worth that?
At that time, I don't think so. Did he turn out to be? Yeah, he did.
He has reportedly, Scott Hall reportedly said in interviews that he had what they call a favorite nations clause in his contract. For those people who don't know what a favorite nations clause is, it is if Jack comes and works for me and I give him $100 a night, and he's got that favorite nations contract, and I bring in Rodney and I give him $150 a night, well, Jack will get $150 a night. That's what a favorite nations clause is. Scott Hall said he had it. Eric Bischoff said he did not have a favorite nations contract, the first contract that they had. He eventually did get it when Bret Hart was brought in and when Goldberg got $5.5 million for his last run he had with WCW,
right.
which is incredible, which is an incredible amount of money for somebody that hadn't wrestled for 2 years. Here's the thing I want to make sure people understand. Everybody knows Eric Bischoff, Ric Flair didn't get along. I mean, that was no doubt, especially at one point they didn't get along. He would not. Now, Scott Hall would say he was going to get more money. The problem was, as Eric Bischoff said, he would not get anyone more than Sting. Sting was making $750,000 a year. So he wasn't going to give him more than him, and he wasn't going to give him more than Ric Flair, which was making $500,000 a year. Was that I think that was probably a smart idea on Eric Bischoff's. Don't you think so, Jack?
I do.
You know, because you give more than what Ric Flair is going to be having. Let me ask you this. You know, looking back at what Scott Hall, Kevin Nash were doing in the WWF dressing rooms, and let's be honest, they wasn't the most well-liked people in the dressing room. What do you think that the morale in the dressing room was when he found out that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash were coming to World Championship Wrestling?
I can't say for sure, but obviously I don't think it was good. Now, I think that turned around eventually, because even though they were getting the run of doing what they wanted to do there, business was up and everybody was getting more money in the long run. Now, initially, no, I think that was probably one of the smartest things he did, is not paying him, more than he was paying Ric Flair, because regardless of anything else, Ric Flair is very well respected in the dressing room.
Yes.
And guys, I think, would have been really upset to know that here's this guy who had done a lame gimmick with him a few years prior, who had gotten a good push in WWE, but still was not at Ric Flair level by any stretch of the imagination. And as an aside, nothing against Scott Hall, he's still not. He never did get to Ric Flair level. But, if you brought him in and he was making more money than Ric Flair, I think you would have had a bit of a revolt in the dressing room over that.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, 1 year later, when the contracts are renegotiated, Scott Hall starts making $200,000 more than Ric Flair. Did he deserve it at that point?
Arguably, maybe. But they weren't doing as much with Ric Flair to get him out in front either at that time. Rick was a mainstay guy there, and that's, they figured, well, he's done what he's going to do for us. Let's just keep him in the position he's in, and let's try to elevate everybody else. So, maybe, I don't know what the gate receipts were. I don't know what the sponsorships deal were. If that was increasing because of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, then yeah, they deserve to be making more money.
Well, we know they were selling a lot of NWO merchandise.
Yeah,
that's the one thing we do know, that everywhere you went, there was an NWO shirt somewhere. And
I had them.
I mean, they were everywhere.
Thank God for Kmart, because I wouldn't buy them from WCW.
Now we've looked at Scott Hall. Now let's look at Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash was staying in the WWF. He was not leaving. He was not going anywhere. He had told Scott, I'm going to stay here. Although that changed when Nash got mad at the WW In Your House #6 that was taped in Louisville, Kentucky, when Bret Hart did not want to take his power bomb. Have you ever watched the match? It was the cage match. It was between The Undertaker and it was between Kevin Nash and Bret Hart for the World Wrestling Federation heavyweight title. Undertaker comes from underneath the ring and pulls Kevin Nash, into the abyss or wherever they go. Kevin Nash wanted to give Bret Hart that power bomb. He wanted to give him the deal, and so that then when he starts to walk up the cage, he had almost won he had won the title in respect, but Undertaker made him lose. Bret Hart said no, he did not want to do that. Do you blame Kevin Nash at that point, going right just directly to Scott Hall and saying, "All right, I'm leaving. See if Eric Bischoff would give me a contract"?
Yeah, I think the seeds were already planted there, obviously, because normally I would think that something if he was making good money in WWE and you were talking about one spot, the guy didn't want to do one spot. And I remember the match. I mean, he made Kevin look great in there. And but if he was looking for a trigger, then that was the trigger. And I understand that, from his point of view. I don't know if I would have done that, but it worked out good for him. So what do I know?
Well, now, based on Eric Bischoff and Kevin Nash told everybody he was going to make $780,000 for the first year. That Eric Bischoff says is not true, that he wouldn't have gave him more than Ric Flair, and he certainly wouldn't have gave him more than Sting. He says he gave him a $500,000 contract, which by the next year, he would make $756,000. He would actually make more money than Scott Hall would make. You know what was when I was doing the research of this, their contracts, Scott Hall's and Kevin Nash's contract expired 12 days from each other. You would think somebody would look at that. They had to give a 90-day contract. They had to give 90 days because I believe their contract was I think they only made 15 shows a month and they got $150 a night. That was the only thing that was on their contract. So it's $1,500 a month, basically, that they were only guaranteed. And they made a whole lot more than that from what I've heard.
Oh, yeah.
But you know, that's no wonder they wanted to go work for somewhere where they knew they were going to work less days. And
certainly,
and they were going to not have to do as much. Basically, Vince thought a lot of made him do a lot of stuff during that time. Let me ask you this about a favorite nation's contract. We talked about it just moments ago. Would you have ever put somebody on a favorite nation's contract?
If I was in that position, I don't think I would have. To me, if you're worth, if we agree on what your worth is, then yeah, I'll pay you that. But if somebody else is doing better business for me, I'm not going to pay you the same amount for doing what somebody else is doing and you're not doing. So, but that's me from a promotion standpoint.
One thing that people talked about is Eric Bischoff was the man that started contracts in professional wrestling. That is not true.
No.
Now, he may have gave a huge amount of money as far as contracts went.
Yeah, we could say big money contracts, and that would be accurate.
But everybody got a contract. When Dad went and worked for Ole Anderson as his assistant booker, he was given a contract. It was $102,000 a year, so he was under a contract back then. Everybody that worked there was given a contract to go work. I was even when I did the announcing, I was given here's what you're going to make, and so it wasn't like they said, well, if you go there and you get a pickle and Dr. Pepper, that ain't what they told me, there. So everybody's got contracts. So no, you can't blame Eric Bischoff for contracts. They were around for many years. Let's talk about May 19th, 1996. The Click. Let's talk about them just for a second. They broke character at a live event at Madison Square Garden where they all came out and hugged each other, and I think it was called the Curtain Call.
Yep.
What did you think about that, Jack?
I thought it was terrible for business. And the thing was, it didn't hurt the guys who were leaving. It hurt the guys who were staying. And the guy who got hurt the most was Triple H, who was in line for a big push already at that point. And as an aside, that's one of the things that irritates me is people say he was only pushed because he started dating and married Stephanie. He was in line long before that. He earned his spot in WWE. But he's the one, because you couldn't punish your champion, who was Shawn Michaels. Couldn't do anything to him. But Triple H took the brunt of the of paying for that sin, and shows you what kind of character he is, though, that he overcome that and got to where he's at. And I don't know. I would even, another aside here, I would even argue that he would probably be where he's at even without the marriage part, because he is brilliant at what he does.
Yeah, I agree with you. The thing about it is, they asked Eric Bischoff on 83 Weeks, his podcast, they asked him if that was a problem for him, and he said no. Would it have been a problem for you if they were coming to work for you after doing that?
Yeah, it would have for me. But Eric wasn't as rooted in old school as what you and I are.
Yeah, I don't think I would have liked it very well. I think they would have paid for it when they got there as well.
Yeah, that was a respect factor, a respect to the business factor to me.
Let me go over some ratings in May. And this is important because this is we already know Kevin Nash is leaving in 90 days. We already know Scott Hall is leaving in 90 days from the WWF. So here's some Raw and Nitro ratings for the month of May. May 6th, Nitro was 1.9, Raw 4.1. I mean, that's a long difference, right? Yeah. May 13th, Nitro 2.3, Raw 3.5. Again, not as big, but it's still there. May 20th, Nitro is a 3.1, Raw a 2.3. May 27th, Nitro 2.8, Raw 2.3. What happens to Raw, Jack? What happens between May 6th of a 4.1 to Raw on May 27, 2.3?
They made no adjustments in their product. WCW was changing the direction of not just their product, but the business in general. And Vince was caught behind the 8 ball. He wasn't paying attention. And, that brought about eventually the whole adult attitude era type deal, which, by the way, it was later on. Raw was the first hour. Raw is War was the second hour with the more adult nature stuff. So it gave the parents time to understand, hey, the kids need to be in bed, when this second hour comes up.
Do you think the curtain call hurt WWF in any way as far as longtime wrestling fans that it just insulted them?
Not as. I think those in that arena, I think those that, were buying the rags back then and keeping up with that kind of stuff. Yeah. The saving grace to that was that we didn't have the internet back then.
True.
If we had, I think it would have hurt them really bad. Regardless, even though years prior, Vince had come out and said, this is just a show, wrestling fans were still holding on to that. And Vince still presented a product that was supposed to be legitimate to a great degree, although we've all seen the comedy level rise steadily over the years. So yeah, that's a lot of factors there.
When we talk about Eric Bischoff and he talks about wanting a reality-based business, if you look back, majority of wrestling always drew based on reality.
Yeah.
Do you not think that the product today that they may look? I mean, all you have to do is look back into the 60s, the 70s, and 80s, and always look at when business was good. It was more of a reality-based wrestling. It was always based on reality and a realism. You would think they would notice that today.
Well, and I watched The Undertaker's interview with Stone Cold Steve Austin last night, and he talked about that as how he came in that character era. He was just a character. Now, he got over immediately because he was a great character. Yeah. But it wasn't until they added the factor of Kane that they started layering that character and started building on personal issues and, explaining his backstory more in detail. And that's when he not only started growing even bigger in popularity, but WWF went up with it too. But it seems like they've lost that lesson over the years.
Eric Bischoff has said that he did not talk to really much to Scott Hall or Kevin Nash about the angle that he was going to do as far as the NWO. He told them just a little bit, but he wouldn't tell them all because, well, he was afraid they would tell. He didn't trust anybody.
Yeah, well, they weren't good at kayfabe. They'd prove that before they got there.
That is true. That is true. Let's now talk about May 27th, the Monday Nitro, 1996 in Macon, Georgia. Steve Dahl was facing the Mauler, which was Michael Enos. I don't believe, had he been the Beverly Brother already in WWE?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Scott Hall comes out from the crowd, and he climbs over the rail, and he gets the mic, and he basically challenges 3 wrestlers from WCW, 3 of the best, to get in the ring and wrestle them. What did you think about this, Jack?
I thought it was pretty smart. I mean, there was a buzz just by him being there. And then when he finally, come across and, the way they portrayed them, of course, they eventually called them the outsiders, but they portrayed them as those characters, as they're not employed here. They're not a part of this ship. They're WWE folks. And they all but said that plainly so many times, that Vince was sending them down to cause trouble, which if I remember correctly, there was a lawsuit over that from Vince.
Yes,
but it was smart booking. It was really good storytelling.
When he came out and he said, "You know who I am, and you know why we're here," and he said, "If you want war, it's time for war." I can understand why Vince McMahon sued him in the WO, because Certainly. It did look like Razor Ramon came into WCW, and it did look like they were part of the show. So I can understand that. Now, I guess I have to ask this question. Is the success of WCW, was it a let's just say this, was it WWF's hard work at the getting Scott Hall and Kevin Nash over that made that get over? Or was it what Eric Bischoff did with them?
I think it was what Eric Bischoff did with them. Because with WWF, when they were there, certainly they were some of the bigger stars there. But, if you go back and look at numbers, they were not the biggest draws that they ever had. Certainly Kevin Nash was not a big gate draw as champion. And that's not taking anything away from their abilities, but that's just the truth of the matter. But Eric Bischoff betrayed them in a way that you wanted to see what was coming next.
Yeah.
I mean, I had long been in the business at this point, and I still look forward every Monday to seeing what they were going to do. Yeah. Now, I played the dial flipping back and forth, but if they were doing something, that's where my station stayed on, because I wanted to see what they were doing.
At the end of the show, Scott Hall comes back out, and this time I really enjoyed the interaction between him and Eric Bischoff. He kept on getting up, and kept telling him to calm down, and sat back down and said, I thought the way he did it, he did have the let's be honest, Kevin Nash or Scott Hall, he did have the Razor Ramon accent during this.
Sure.
He did have it pretty heavily. So I can understand why WWF decided this was trademark infringement and sued him for it. And by the way, that lawsuit went on to 2000. It started in 1996, went on to 2000, and Vince McMahon did win that. How much it was for, I don't know. I just know Vince McMahon won that. I have to ask you this question, though. Vince McMahon wrote a letter, and he said he didn't want to do the lawsuit, but this is what he said. I find it pretty funny. He said that they were a family-owned company, and that they couldn't believe the big bad billionaire Ted Turner would come in there and just try to put them out of business. Well, I don't know about what do you think Ron Fuller and Mike Graham and those guys, what do you think they thought about the big millionaire coming in and trying to put them out of business? Or actually did put them out of business.
I don't think anybody had any sympathy for Vince.
No, I don't think so either. But you know what? I think that when Scott Hall came in, I think it was one of the most memorable television moments in the history of professional wrestling. I think I would put it up there as, and it was very well done. And Eric Bischoff should give himself now him coming down the aisle, coming from the crowd. Larry Zbyszko is supposedly the one that told him to come from the crowd. Now, Eric Bischoff says he don't believe that's true. He believes he told him. So we'll just have to take it that maybe both of them together.
Whoever came up with it, it was a great idea. We'll just put it that way.
Yes. All right, let's talk about June 3rd, 1996 on Nitro, taped in Asheville, North Carolina. Scott Hall comes out at the end of the show, and again, he takes him and Eric Bischoff. The stuff between them is great. And then here comes Sting. Have you seen this recently, Jack?
It's been a long time since I've seen that.
The reaction of Sting and Scott Hall and him throwing the toothpick. Again, I can understand WWF with the toothpick throwing. I can understand where they got a problem with it. But when he throws it at Sting, the people in that crowd kind of goes, ooh. And when he slaps them, the place goes unglued. And then all the people came out and got him off. Again, good television. And he said these words: you want to go to war? We're going to go to war. And I'm going to bring a big surprise the next week. Great stuff. Great television.
Yep.
Now, I don't know if the rest of it, I can't remember. I don't think the rest of it was that great. But I remember that being good. And by the way, you can watch every bit of this on YouTube if you've not seen it, if you want to go back to this. I think it's also available on the WWE Network.
Yeah, and of course, the WWE has a whole anthology series about the competition between the two also. That's really, really good.
So go check it out. If you don't have the WWE Network, go over there and check it out, and because it's very good stuff. It's very entertaining stuff. Even people inside the wrestling business was entertained by it.
Mm-hmm.
I was entertained by it. I thought it was good stuff, and we had just left WCW in 1994. Maybe about 1995. I can't remember now the time frames. It was somewhere around 94, 95. We had left there and. Because they got rid of the developmental territory, so to speak, the developmental towns. So it took me a while to watch the show again. Once you leave there, you don't want to watch the show. June 10th, 1996, Scott Hall shows up, is talking to Eric Bischoff. Kevin Nash walks up behind him, and now. I want to ask the question. People are making a big deal out of when he says, and maybe I'm missing something. When he says, "This is where the big boys play." Do you understand that adjective? Was that what were they making a big deal out of? Is that not a right thing to say? Is adjective completely wrong in that?
I don't know. I never liked that logo or whatever slogan. To begin with,
where the big boys play.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty bad. Let me tell you, at the end of this thing, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall were over, and the people were going nuts for them. This was some great stuff. We don't have time to talk about the big surprise, and we all know Hulk Hogan turning heel. Probably one of another one of the most memorable moments in professional wrestling. Great stuff for this time frame. Now we're going to take here and look at part 2. We're going to look at who the third man was going to be at first, because it wasn't going to be Hulk Hogan. And so we'll look at that, and we'll also talk about Hulk Hogan and how it became that he was going to become the third man. And we'll talk a little bit about his contract and how much he was making at the time as well, because he was doing very well for himself.
Yeah, he was pretty much smoking everybody.
And I don't think the Favorite Nations contract. I don't think Hogan was part of that.
He didn't have to. He was so far ahead of the pack, it didn't matter.
All right, Jack, you ready to see what the insiders have got to say?
Let's head them.
All right, here we go. Michael Barr is with us from Southeast Alabama. Kevin Finley said, "Oh, I won't comment. I'm not a Hall and Nash fan." I'm not saying that I was a big Kevin Nash fan by no stretch of the imagination. He got mad at me one time when I announced him as as when he was Vinny Vegas, and I got his weight wrong. He made a huge deal at it. So I wasn't a big fan of it, but I enjoyed what they did here.
Yes.
I thought both of them were tremendous in this way they were doing them. Glenn Allen Shelton, hello from Tennessee. Andrew says NWO for life. Chris Welch, hi also from Tennessee. Richard Hood is with us. How you doing, Richard?
Hey, Richard.
Michael Barr, new world order. Good evening, guys, from Saudi Daisy. David Bice. Christopher Hughes said, evening, guys. I'm off tonight, so I thought I would join you guys, talk a little wrestling. I work Tuesday, but I will be back Thursday. Richard Hood said, Ted Turner was handing out those big checks. Yes, he was. Michael Buffer, by the way, Michael Buffer was making $10,000 for that one match that he would do the announcing for. And they didn't even want to pay my trance one time to get started. So I was thinking, man. And I said, well, what about that 10 grand you're paying Michael Buffer? You know, take $100 from him. That's only 99 that he was going to make, and pay me. Michael Barr said, why were there two different versions of the NWO? It started out with black and white, the red and black, the wolf pack in the house, and the Sting was mutual, and it made him a huge market when he went against it. Yeah, I think Jack, did that not dilute the NWO?
They what's the term? Jump the shark. That was both. NWO was both what was the turning point for WCWs to their greatness. But overplaying that hand led to the demise of it, I believe. You know, you can string something out, but you can't string it out forever. You have to make drastic changes, and they weren't willing to do that, and I think that hurt them over time.
The same thing was done with the Four Horsemen. It was overdone so many times. It just did not. People just did not care about it. Let's see. Don, hold it. A quick look in before our training begins with Hybrid. Have a good show. Mickey Mayfield, WWF had the fake Diesel and Razor Ramon at the same time Hall and Nash came to. Oh, that was a great idea. Whoever came up with that idea, they should have been fired.
Poor Jim Ross had to get that over too.
That was bad. That's Vince McMahon. Bad. That was Vince McMahon's ideal. I think one of them was, I believe, might have been Kane, wasn't it? Wasn't one of them?
Yeah, he was the Diesel character, and I can't remember the Razor Ramon guy. He passed away a few years ago. He worked out of Japan, Rick something, but I can't remember his name.
That was some horrible stuff. Why they thought that was going to work, I don't know. I still have no clue why they. Dennis Mitchell said, hello from Montgomery. NWO did not need Hulk to joke Hogan. I did not respect Eric. Colonel Tom Parker Bischoff. I liked it when Jesse Grooves never did not miss Vinny Vegas. Well, no, I don't think I missed Vinny Vegas as well. Or Oz by that.
Yeah.
Let me talk about, no matter what you want to say about Hulk Hogan, he was very successful at being Hulk Hogan. He was very successful at being Hollywood Hogan. And he did both times, drew a lot of money and a lot of ratings. Don't you agree there, Jack?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. People say what they want to about Hulk Hogan, but he's one of the greatest performers in the history of our industry and one of the biggest draws that we've ever had. Is he everybody's cup of tea? No, but, neither are we for that matter. So, you just, but you can't take away from the success he's had, because when you go out and to Joe Public out there and you bring up professional wrestling, the first name that they're going to say is Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
They may not know he's been retired all these years, and away from the business, but that's still the first name that comes to their mind when they think of pro wrestling.
I also think, Eric Bischoff, I'm not saying I was a major fan of Eric Bischoff. I have to give him, he had one ideal, and that's all he really had. I mean, unfortunately, he had the NWO, and he had nothing to fall back on, which was sad. When he talks about, in his podcast, he talks about long-term booking. If you look at it, the only thing that he had was maybe a good 6 months of the NWO, but had no clue where he was going after that.
Exactly.
And that is a major problem in wrestling today. I don't think they know where they're going. And I don't think they have long-term storylines. And if they do,
no, they don't.
They're really bad.
And there's so many guys sitting at home that know how to pull it out. Dutch Mantel comes to mind. Yeah. You know, I would move Dutch up, and I would put him in an office, and I would give him control.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's just me.
Ronnie Jordan said he also managed Nash in the early 90s. All right. I did not remember that, but he didn't manage him when he was Vinny Vegas, did he? I don't remember. I think Diamond Dallas Page was there when I was, but I think he was wrestling at the time. I'm pretty sure he was.
I can't remember.
Michael Barr, hey yo, Razor Ramon. Ronnie Jordan, Vinny Vegas. Yeah, Vinny Vegas. He had an attitude then, so it had nothing to do with getting a push, okay? So don't think that him having a push had anything to do with it. He was working in Mississippi with us, and he had an attitude at that point. So
I've got a buddy that played football with him in college, and he said he had an attitude then. So I guess he's had it all his life.
So, Dennis Mitchell, who was the Nacho Man and Billionaire Ted? I don't know who played those.
They were just actors that they brought in to do that. They might have been staff people, but they were not wrestlers.
No. Mickey Mayfield, Concrete and Steel. I think that was when they were doing the Master Blasters, wasn't it?
I think
so. He was one of them. I don't know which one he was.
Yeah, he was the bad one.
Sting was making over $6 million in WCW. Scott Hall was making over $4 million. Kevin Nash was making over $5 million. Yeah, especially at the end there, and that's the reason they all went. That's the reason they took them and put them out of business.
Yep.
So Christopher Hughes, he didn't manage him in the AWA. Scott was with Kurt Hennig and had the tag straps. Then he went to Florida with Dusty and PWF. DDP was there already. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Jeffrey Archey said, hey, evening, y'all. When you talk about your competition, you are giving them free advertising regardless of what one may say. Exactly. That's exactly. I don't think it's smart in any because Vince McMahon went on his television show and said that Scott Hall and Kevin Nash did not work for the WWF anymore. And over on Nitro, this is what he said. Well, why don't you just give all your people the reason to tune over to your people? Yeah, it's not.
Acknowledging both from both sides hurt both of them. Because remember when Mick Foley won the title the first time, Bischoff had, I believe it was Tony Schiavone, say, you don't have to worry about turning over to WWE. Mick Foley wins the world championship tonight because it's pre-tape. And everybody turned over to watch Mick Foley win the world championship.
Yeah, they said that the moment they said it, 600,000 people turned the channel to go watch. We'll go watch him win the title. Which, that's the turning point. Plus, the DX invasion kind of helped WWF.
Oh gosh, yes, huge.
Get back to that. I'm a pro wrestling inside and out for life. Thank you so much. All right, let's get to it because we're running out of time. So let's throw. Brent Kevin Nash said there was a favorite nation when he came in.
Kevin Nash said a lot of things.
Based on what Eric Bischoff said, he did not have that in his contract. He did not have it until Bret Hart and Goldberg got and then they put him in there because they knew Bret Hart was going to make $2.5 million a year. That was what he was given.
And I'll be honest, I will go with what Eric Bischoff says because Eric doesn't care about fluffing his resume up. He's been very truthful about the things that he said. Nash falls in there with so many other guys in the business. They like to inflate their records a little bit, shall we say.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, one or the other maybe, but I would believe that he did not give him that. He did do what he said he did, not give him more than Ric Flair, because that would have caused trouble with Ted Turner. So Michael Barr, this was in 1996, according to Google, how much they made per year from what I read. It is available because they were having a lawsuit at the time. So all those, what they were being paid is available online. If people want to look at that. Christopher Hughes said Ric Flair's level. Jack Scott couldn't carry his jock strap to the dirty clothes.
Well, that's what I said. Now, was he drawing more than Flair when he, a year or two after that? Yeah, he was. He was drawing more than Flair, but that wasn't Flair's fault. That was because they weren't doing anything with Flair.
Yes, I agree with you. Greg Hickey said, "Woo, amen to that, brother." I don't know what we said, but we'll take it. Mickey Mayfield, my two favorite moments with the NWA: one, Nash throwing Mysterio into the side of the trailer. Yeah, I watched that today. Two, the Giant destroying the ring with his bare hands with Scott Hall standing on it. I don't know for sure if I saw that. Did you see that, Jack?
I don't remember that one.
I don't know. I remember the Mysterio being through. I thought he killed him.
Yeah, like a lawn dart.
Michael Barr said Bill Goldberg was one of my favorites and still is. I do not think he was part of the NWO. No, I don't think he was.
No, he's about the only one that wasn't.
ECW's Blue World Order was hilarious.
It was.
Michael Barr, Jack Britt, do you think the NWO pushed Sting to where he was in WCW?
Sting was already over huge before this ever started. Did it elevate him? Not till they made the character change. When he came in back as the Crow character, I think that's what shot up his value so much more.
By the way, Scott Hall came up with that. He was the guy that told Sting he needed to wear a trench coat, black trench coat, and basically told him to steal from the Undertaker. Basically, and he said put the mask, all the makeup on. So he was the one that came up with that. So we can all credit him for. And I guess Sting as well. I think Sting has said in the interviews it was Scott Hall, by the way. Yeah. The NWO sure brought a lot of brawls to WCW. Dennis Mitchell, I wasn't impressed with Sting, and how do you use the name with Sting the singer?
Well, if you trademark it for different markets. Yeah. So Sting was trademarked in a different way that had nothing to do with music.
Christopher Hughes said, when it came to watching contracts in WWF back then, someone was asleep at the wheel big time. Look at Jeff Jarrett's situation when he left WCW. Yes. Yeah, I don't. They might not have overlooked that, though. I'm not very sure.
Well, they banked that he was going to be big for them.
Michael Barr said Glacier was a great wrestler at WCW. Oh, I loved his whole thing when they come out. It was spectacular, and very nice man.
Ray is an awesome guy who actually runs or one of the main trainers at Cody Rhodes Nightmare Factory Training School now.
Good person to do it. He's a very nice guy. I enjoyed working with him in Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. Did Rodney go watch the Best of Kevin Sullivan VHS Collector Series? I guess he couldn't get back out.
He's having technical difficulties, and Kevin's been known to cut a cord or two.
Michael Barr, could the WCW have stayed together so one's beside the McMahon family had not purchased it, and why did not more WC talent go to WWF? I know it would not have lasted because of the merger, the Time Warner people, really it was the AOL people. They just didn't want wrestling as part of that.
Well, now, in the condition it was in, no, there was no changing what happened. Now, if they had stayed away and had brought in somebody that knew what they were doing and kept their momentum going or rebuilt the momentum or whatever, then they would have been a viable product. AOL wouldn't have got rid of them, but they were losing millions of dollars a week on that product. So, there's no way you keep something like that as part of your portfolio.
Yeah, that's Mickey Mayfield said, remember when Triple H and DX showed up outside the WCW show just like soldiers? And the megaphone yelled at the fans, yes. And we're going to talk about that, and it will be on our YouTube channel. But we're going to, in about 2 weeks, we're going to talk about that, exactly everything that took place, and talk about the stuff. We're going to talk about what Bruce Pritchard talked about it, what Road Dogg. I've watched all kinds of videos of what was going on there, and we'll talk about that. Mickey Mayfield also said the NWO jumped Rodney.
It's possible.
Could have happened. Christopher Hughes, Understand Taker had a real big issue with the curtain call. I wonder what Bill Watts would have done. Oh, Bill Watts would have fired him. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, or shot him in the process.
It wouldn't have worked good for him. I can tell you that. Everybody talks about Bill Watts and that he didn't do a good job while he was in WCW. That is not true. Bill Watts was brought in a harsh situation. He was brought in to cut people's contracts, so he did do that, and that's what he was supposed to do when he got there. When he got there, that was his purpose, to cut people's contracts. So you're not going to be a very liked person when you're cutting their money, and that's what he was there to do. And he did it, and when he got done doing it, they got rid of him. So that was their, WCW to me back then was much better than that of the WWF. It's according to what time period it was. That period, 83 weeks, is how many weeks the WCW beat Monday Nitro. I mean, Raw. So, it was some good times. They had some good stuff going on and went through some talent, though.
Yes, but there is at no point during WWE's entire run that I've ever looked at the product and said, I'd rather watch something Vince Russo did. So.
This is true. WCW had much better talent and better script writers. Well, they didn't have really script writers, so there wasn't such a thing. That did not come along. They had a booking staff, but they didn't do the writers. No, they didn't write out the interviews or anything back then. Wrestling for wrestling. This was around the time when I walked away from WWE, WWF. Richard Hood said people thought that the WWF was invading WCW. Yep. Mike Wood, we'll wave at you as well. How you doing, Mike? We'll give him a wave. I was never a fan of WWF until Stone Cold and New Age Outlaws. I've always been a territories guy. I always loved Stone Cold Steve Austin. I thought he was spectacular. WCW was a better product for adult fans. To a certain extent, it was. That's another thing that happened with AOL. They would not allow them to do anything on television. And we'll talk about that next week. They were when we were there as kids, and my dad was taking care of a lot of TVs on TBS. They couldn't do nothing, so it was not good when you worked for TBS. They did not want you doing anything on television. It was for sure what Rick Bischoff did with them. I did the same thing. I flipped the channels. WCW had better matches. Yes, at the time for that. Little 83 weeks of that, they did have a better show. It was the Attitude Era that pushed me towards WCW even more. Christopher Hughes said, I agree totally. I hate how Vince would treat us fans like we were stupid. He'd bring in Terry Funk and try to act like he never wrestled before, like we never knew him. I didn't like that myself. What about you, Jack?
No, I didn't like that either.
Hey, Gene Keys, thank you so much for being a part of the show. I noticed you left us some comments on our YouTube channel. We certainly appreciate it, and I'm glad you got to come on here live and see us on this program. So we talk about a little bit of everything. We're talking about NWO. We talk about a lot of the territories in professional wrestling because that's what I grew up in. That's why Jack was around the territories, and we did work a little bit with the WCW, but it was a lot of the times we would not really like to talk about. Wasn't the most fun I've ever had in the wrestling business. I love the territories still to this day. I am currently uploading full Stampede Wrestling shows on this channel. I love Stampede Wrestling shows. So go to Wrestling with Wrestling if you want to see Stampede Wrestling, and you'll enjoy it.
Great promotion.
Great wrestling. So people get to Wrestling with Wrestling. I think that's I guess that's his name, is his YouTube channel. Get over there and see some of the Stampede Wrestling.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with you, but I'm going to look you up.
Greg Hickey said, I never forget the Stone Cold glass shattering smoked nitro. Michael Barr, I for one missed the WCW. It was such a great business. Christopher Hughes said he will check out he'll check out your channel, Wrestling with Wrestling. And we are running out of time, so I'm just gonna make sure that we got everybody in. Stuart Kemp said, not a fan of hash. Now, I don't guess he's a friend of Hash either, but not a friend of Nash. Not a friend of Nash. All okay, but the WCW did outperform. The biggest issue, it seemed, was they wanted to go older and not develop. It may have been the Achilles heel.
Yes, Stuart, 100%.
You never want to go backwards. The wrestling business will never go backwards. It will always go forward. And a lot of people think when we talk about old school wrestling, that's the way we want it. They think we're meaning, oh, we want to go back to a headlock for 20 minutes. No, but it has to be real. You've got people got to know that that what you're producing is real, and it has to be a little bit of realism to it, but not go backwards. The program don't need to be a 20-minute headlock or a 8-minute Black Bart squash match. That it's never going to go back to that, and it shouldn't. Christopher said the problem with WCW was Vince Russo. Yeah, especially
at the end. Yep, sure was.
At the end, that was horrible. Donovan Graham said Robert Fuller was in the ring when Scott Hall came out and told the audience it was war. Yes, he was. Was he managing? Who was he managing? That the Mauler or the other? It wasn't the Steve Dogg though. I don't think.
No.
Greg Hickey, hi from Birmingham.
Hi, Greg.
Glenn Allen Shelton, sorry, but talk wrestling. It is Flair, Harley, Fez, DiBiase, and Brody. Great people.
We all have our favorites, and those are some awesome wrestlers.
Yeah. Richard Hood, Jack, if running promotion, I would put you and Jim Cornette over it.
We'd probably kill each other, but okay.
There's two big spectrums there, Jim Cornette and Jack. So Jack's a little level-headed.
We do share a similar vision on the industry. We just approach it a different way.
This is true. Jim Cornette, if he could just not use some profanity every 3 words, it would be very helpful in his stuff. And let me just make sure, because we are running out of time. Let me make sure we hadn't. Victor Nash, I will put Shane McMahon needs to bring WCW back since he bought it. Yes, and but anyway, if we missed your stuff, we're sorry, but we are running out of time. Jack, any closing comments of part 1 of the NWO? Next week we will look at Hulk Hogan.
Now, looking forward to next week. Looking forward to tomorrow night. Also, if you haven't watched it, WWE did a great retirement for The Undertaker last night. It's well worth a look. Mark did a tremendous job as The Undertaker for 30 years, and that is spectacular in this industry.
One of the greats, respected by everyone in professional wrestling. And so, tomorrow night, World Championship Wrestling. We'll talk about, I believe it's June the 7th or 8th of 1985. It's one of those dates. I'm not sure which one. I don't have it wrote down for, but it's one of those dates, June 7th or 8th, 1985. A pretty good show. Loser League Town match on that one with Ron Garvin and Black Bart. A pretty decent match. All right, Jack, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of the show. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us the big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on Facebook, like and share the page. We have had a lot of people share their page. The other day we had a picture of Sting, Ric Flair, Rick Scott Steiner, and the Road Warriors, and it got shared over 1,000 times, over 7,000 likes, and we thank you for doing that and being a part. And every time we post something, we really do appreciate it. We had one of Sting and Ric Flair, a picture of them, 2,300 likes, and we appreciate you taking the time to for liking our videos and liking our page. All right, Jack, thank you so much, and thank you, and we'll see you on the next episode of Pro Wrestling Inside Now.